The Singapore core central region has always been the most attractive, the most desirable part of Singapore. But the problem has been that it has always been the most expensive by a long margin. But that changed in 2023. And today, as we sit in 2025, we find that the core central region is an amazingly attractive proposition, not just in terms of livability, but in terms of price. Hi everyone, welcome back to Singapore Property Pilots, where we try to guide you through your property journey through superior knowledge and superior service. I'm Utkarsh.
I'm Nidhi.
And I'm Farrand.
And today we're going to talk about why the core central region of Singapore is particularly attractive in 2025. If you want to know more about what the core central region is, I'd refer you to our previous video where you can understand it better. This video will talk a little bit more about both the livability and the investment opportunity that we see at this point in time. So let's talk about core central region in summary, and of course more details are in the previous video. But this is the premium district, the prime district of Singapore, always been the most expensive. This is where the city first started and expanded from there. So because of this, the core central region has always been the most expensive. In fact, traditionally, if you looked at prices, if you went back 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, this region was always about 50 to 60 to sometimes even twice as expensive versus other regions. So just to quickly recap, there are three essential broad areas of Singapore: CCR, core central region. Then you have RCR, which is rest of central, which is slightly further outside. And then you have OCR, which is outside central region. Traditionally, CCR has been way more expensive, 50 to 60% more than the RCR and probably double as much as OCR. But what has happened is that something changed. Something changed 2 years ago. The core central region, in most countries, the prime areas are often invested in and lived by not only locals, but they're also lived by foreigners. So the core central region has about a 50-50 ownership between foreigners and locals.
Yeah.
In 2023, the Singapore government decided that because there were significant pressures, the market was heating up a fair bit. They decided to impose a 60% ABSD, additional buyer stamp duty, on foreigners. What this meant is if a foreigner wanted to buy a property in Singapore, essentially they had to pay almost 1.6 times.
Yes.
And as you can imagine, this completely tempered the demand because people may pay 10%, 20%, but asking somebody to pay 60%
It's quite a significant
demand.
Yeah.
Right? So that entire bit went out of the market. That entire demand went out of the market. And so now the core central region is, when you look at the pricing of new launches, and we'll pop up some graphs for you over here, it is practically the same price as RCR. And I think for you, Farrand, as a long-time person in the industry, how shocking is that to see such numbers?
Truly shocking. And it's very curious as to why nobody is taking action, right? What do you call that word? Taking advantage of that, that situation.
Yeah.
Though we are seeing a few traces, a few clients that you served recently.
Definitely. I think the last few clients that we served, we actually guided them through this, this unique situation that we're presented with. And I think that's sort of coming into the light as well. So some of the new launches that we're going to talk about later, we will compare some PSFs that you will get to see as to, where they are in comparison to the RCR launches and stuff like that. But I think the perspective is getting to that point. So I think first mover advantage, as we always talk about, is really important to look at. I know this is not a new launch first mover advantage, but it's definitely a first mover advantage to know the information, get the information, and from there take the action. So that's what we will delve into in this particular video a little bit more.
Yeah. So there are two pieces, right? So while the prices for CCR are not going up at the same, have not gone up at the same rate because people who can buy, the foreigners, have been removed. It does not mean that has affected other parts of CCR. Rents remain way higher than the rest of Singapore. Livability remains way higher because this is where the offices are, this is where Orchard is, this is where Singapore River is.
Yeah.
All the desired. So it's essentially just for buyers, it's a free option for them essentially.
That's true.
Because the prices have been artificially depressed temporarily by this cooling measure. So there's another aspect to CCR. The thing is, because CCR is the original part of Singapore, it is always viewed both by Singaporeans and by foreigners as the safe place to buy. Policy may fluctuate here, there, up, down. But again, Farrand, maybe you can share some light on how CCR, because it's been the place to be How is it viewed in general in Singapore?
Right. The locals definitely aspire to live in the CCR, right? And as investment also the same, right? That is always the first choice. But as you mentioned earlier, unfortunately, it's due to affordability.
Yeah.
But as you also mentioned, in the last 10, 15, 20 years, the price of RCR and OCR has increased by this tremendous amount to bring the gap between the core central region really very historically so close to the rest of Singapore, the prices. So we felt that this is really a value proposition.
An opportunity for sure.
Opportunity.
And from the rentability perspective as well, we'll show you some data points as well where you can see there's, a 10-year comparison in different condos that we have taken a look at for RCR, CCR and OCR. And you can see actually the demand for rentability has always been marginally higher in this particular area. And that's driven by primarily three factors. I think this area is always known as a location that is favored not just by locals, but also, by expats and professionals who always want to be here. Its connectivity to the CBD and, even like the amenities. Another important factor is the lifestyle. Especially, professional expats always want to have that kind of lifestyle. And then another interesting factor is coming back to the schools. A lot of people who want to send their children to primary schools, they actually look at this area for rentability as well, just to be able to get their children to primary schools. So it's not just, expats and professionals and foreigners, but also locals. That they do look at this area from the rentability factor.
Yeah, so that kind of touches on why there's a strong livability and a strong financial case for buying in CCR right now if you're in the market to buy. Livability we just talked about. But financially, there are three aspects to it. Aspect number one is, of course, it gives much higher rental because rents are much higher over here.
Yeah.
So you are able to get a significant amount of return on your capital. Aspect number two is because the price is artificially depressed due to this particular stated temporary government policy of 60% ABSD, there is a significant upside whenever there is some sort of policy reversion. We don't know when it will be, how it will be, but it is likely that an open country like Singapore, built on free trade, built on and having a very large expat population, would not have a very protectionist policy for that for a very long period of time. So there's a significant upside, right? If you just take a reversion even halfway to the traditional gap, you can see how much of an outpacing that would be of the rest of the Singapore market. And it's just speaking from personal experience, because working in an MNC here in Singapore, what was very noticeable to me is that 10, 15 years ago, a lot of people who were working in Singapore, even though they were foreigners, they would end up just buying a place over here because they're working here anyway. They don't want to spend so much on rent because rents are expensive. And of course, what has happened the last 3 to 4 years is that completely stopped because nobody can afford to pay 60%. So that's a huge upside. And the third one to note is, because things are depressed, what you will notice is that in CCR, you're getting freehold properties at almost a similar, in fact, sometimes even lower PSF versus new 99-year, the leasehold properties. And going back to long-term safety, store of value, nothing can beat freehold because you do not have a lease that you have to worry about. I've got 90 years left, I've got 85 years left.
Yeah.
So that is another thing that you should take advantage of, because go back 10 years. Suddenly, when you see the pricing of CCR, it would be like this unachievable dream. But now, when you're looking to buy a property, you're looking at, okay, if I'm considering RCR, OCR, CCR is at the same price.
Yeah, that's true.
Same PSF. So something to consider.
That's very true. And I think that is something that we're noticing also because, out of the 32 or 34 new launches planned for this year, I think there are about 10 new launches that are planned for the central area itself, CCR, which we'll be touching base in the next videos, and where we'll actually talk about the PSF a little bit as well. So that's where we'll dive deeper into that. But yeah, that's where the focus is coming back to. We're actually seeing en bloc potentials happening, like a notable Hillcrest. That's probably looking into en bloc. So a couple of en bloc potentials also planned in this area. So I think the focus is coming back to CCR.
Yes.
So definitely an opportunity worth exploring.
Yeah, because of the last few years, the launches were primarily in RCR and OCR. So that has actually set a benchmark pricing for the outskirts.
True.
So CCR has been left behind, so to speak. And this will be the year of the core central region.
Yep. Or as we call the year of the snake dragon, which year was it?
Forgot.
Which year was it?
Dragon.
Dragon.
Yeah.
No, it's not dragon.
It's not dragon.
It's not dragon. Which snake? Okay.
We'll pop it
Never
up here.
mind. It's the year of you.
All right, so keep watching the series. In the next episode, what we will do is we will get into details on the new launches coming up in CCR and what you should know, where you should be looking, should you be buying, how does it compare to other things? All those questions will be answered in the next episode.